and chat will be able to jump in with us as we speak. You will do most of this speaking because I have this bounce back in my audio in my head, and so it's ever so frustrating. But I will be able to fix that by the show tonight.
With the caveat that I have dinner in the oven already. So
right.
But yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've done that many times where I get the reverb, and it's
a very strange thing. That said,
so look, yeah. I put out a vlog this morning, which I still stand by. I've gotten some pushback on the whole thing about me saying that this incident with Prigozhin over the weekend would be the cause of Putin's eventual fall from power. I never said that. If I said that, or if I implied that, or if I misspoke, that's not what I meant. So those who got the impression that that's what I was saying, I didn't do my job properly. So let me try and articulate better what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this is the first public indication, and when this becomes public, it is beyond Putin's control. So that in itself speeds back on something that then cascades, because the czar isn't supposed to be in control of everything. So if he's not in control, and the chinks in the armor are there, and the failures are there, and they become public, that this now is becoming the inevitable, the public example of what I have been saying since I realized that he was going to lose the war in Ukraine, and that he would be the head of state of the Russian Empire when they lost control of the cornerstone of their empire, which is Ukraine. He can't survive that. No leader can. No leader could. No leader could. Every empire losing that. I mean, who was it that lost Ireland for the Brits, or Algeria for the French? I don't know my British or French history well enough to know exactly who it was that was around during that time. But I bet they took a massive political blow because of it. And I am sure that Putin, because of his foolish, ill-advised, stupid war against Ukraine, which he owns, you can say what you want, but he owns it. They're going to try in Russia, they're going to try, that was the point of my vlog, is they're going to try and find a scapegoat to blame it on. But ultimately, everybody knows at the end of the day, this is on Putin's doorstep.
Right.
So this is the first what I am saying with today's vlog, what I put out there, was that this is the first public, prominent public event that is everybody can see, that shows what we have known since it's been obvious that he is going to lose the Ukraine war, and that is that he is not in control. He's not a czar or a Russian leader who is writing the story. He is not in control of the narrative. He is not in control of the war. He is not in control of what happens domestically within Russia, and that is a earth-shattering.
Is he even there?
Is he even there? We haven't seen him since Saturday morning. You know, and this is a man who built his presidency on the promise that we would never have the chaos of the 90s again. And we're having not only the chaos of the 90s, but we're having, like, the place is on fire. You know, things are blowing up. Tanks are rolling up the M4 towards Moscow. Rostov-on-Don is being occupied by, this Prigozhin guy, and the oligarchs are openly fighting amongst themselves. This is not what Putin promised. And so this event,
to say the very least,
is inescapable. And it will only now, I believe firmly. Now, he's a wily guy, and he's a street fighter, and he's overcome adverse events in the past, but nothing like this. I mean, I'm going over to all the talking points that, like, my friends and I have argued about all day today. But I firmly believe he is going one direction, and that is towards either a lame duck presidency where he is in kind of an exile in Sochi, where he's the president, sure, but nobody hears from him. He doesn't really talk. He stays in his palace. he's, and then the guys who are going to orchestrate a post-Putin era are going to be, first they're going to fight one another, and we've talked about that, Hal, you and I, about how this class, the court, the Kremlin court, or the oligarchy, or the silovaki, or the strongmen, inside Putin's court, which are historically called in Russia the boyars. They're going to fight amongst themselves to find out who's going to be dominant. All this while, they will need somebody to be sat in that seat, because Russia and Russia's political power structure requires a center of gravity. So he goes down to, what I am proposing is that he goes down to Sochi. He sits in his palace, or he sits in one of his various palaces around Russia. There's a place midway between St. Petersburg and Moscow. This kind of forest touching likes. He sits there, he only is dragged out in front of the camera in dire circumstances. But most of the time he sits and he's not in front of the camera, and the ruling elite, the boyars, decide who is going to take over from him. And then what happens after that? That's when we get into the he slipped in the shower kind of stuff.
Right, early 90s. Well,
this
reminds me of that stuff we heard about in the early 80s, late 70s, where it was always, the leader stubbed his toe. It means he's got the flu. He's got the flu. It means he has cancer. He's got cancer. He's been dead for 6 weeks. He's on the mend. We've cremated him. Like, that's the translation joke that we did late 70s, early 80s in Russian leaders. And Putin's got to be aware of this. He participated in half of it.
I can't hear a word you're saying. Sorry,
oh, no.
So I can't respond to it.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay, well, hopefully, hold on. I will send it your way. 1 second. Check. 1, 2. That's always the fun part. Let's see. I'm going to send this mic to you just in case. You can hear that. I was basically saying the breakdown of like the idea that a leader is, by the time we hear he's dead, he's been cremated for weeks. And that the kind of Russian idea was that if he's got the sniffles, he's got typhoid. If he's got typhoid, he has cancer. If he has cancer, he's already dead. If he's, if they say he's dead, they murdered him and cremated him weeks ago. And that was a joke in the late 70s, early 80s. And now he's got to be aware of that because Putin participated in it, is my point.
Of course. But he also might not have a choice, is the thing. Is the power elite at some point again, back to the idea that they have this fight amongst themselves. And the power elite kind of figure out who's going to be, who are the guys or the guy who is going to determine who the next czar is in a post-Putin world. Once they make that decision, and it probably will involve blood, and it probably will involve a lot of chaos. But I also said to you, I believe it was on Saturday, I think this is going to be a palace coup and not a street revolution. And so this will be internal within the power structure. There will be casualties. There will be collateral damage, I am sure. But they will work it out amongst themselves because they know, and this is the crazy thing, they know that Putin is done.
Yeah.
He can't survive. He is the one that is going to lose Ukraine. The cornerstone of their concept of self and the cornerstone of the concept of identity as a Russian empire is going to be torn from them abruptly, very quickly, and he will not survive that.
Well,
he was the head of state that lost
That would be
Ukraine.
the question, Phil. I would say is, do you think that's the reason more than any other for Prigozhin's uprising and the machinations that we've been seeing as far as leaders? Because they're all recognizing it's a lost cause. They just don't want to be the last one holding the bag.
Buddy, before this weekend, how many times did I tell you this kind of stuff is what happens in Russian history? There's blood in the water, and the sharks start to circle. They don't attack the food. They attack one another for trying to get at the food. They nip at one another until there's a dominant, and then they consume the dominant. And that's exactly what's happening. The fact that I saw this a year plus ago. I mean, like, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I got to. The fact that we're seeing it actually happen, I mean, it gives me a little bit of an ego boost, I have to admit. But I'm like, this is how this goes. This isn't a surprise. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's been tuning into us for the last year, plus, because I've been talking about exactly this. They're gonna have to. We're not on the radio, thank God. He fucked up.
Yeah.
This was a dumb idea to try and maintain Ukraine by force of arms and violence. Was a stupid idea. He would have been far smarter, and it probably still would have failed because the Ukrainian people don't want to live under Moscow's thumb, and that's just an inescapable starting point from all of this. They don't want to be Russia's bitch anymore. Wake up. But he realized that marching in here would be catastrophic for Russia and for him. Maybe he could have gotten more corruption in the system. Maybe he could have, done more assassinations and, oligarchs who are both Russian and Ukrainian oligarchs and corrupt the system that way and keep that going. But he decided to march in here with tanks. And you're done, son. Bye-bye. And he can't survive this. So when it comes back to, with the vlog I made this morning, and the counterpoints that I've been getting all day, is this kind of like, well, you don't predict Putin is done because of this. I'm not saying he's done it tomorrow. I'm not saying he's done in 6 weeks. What I'm saying is, from this point on, because this was so public, and because of his tanks on the streets, which he promised would never happen again, he is on an unescapable route towards a loss of power that is not of his making. He can't groom a successor. He's going to be taken out of power. He's going to be made a lame duck, or he's going to be in exile, or he's maybe under arrest or some sort of legal procedure is a highly unlikely thing, but who knows? We're in uncharted territory. Or, frankly, he slips in the shower. Or one day we wake up in the morning, we all wake up, and we're told that he had a heart attack in the middle of the night. But from this point on, we are on an inescapable, in my opinion, route towards the end of Putin's reign over Russia.
Right.
And also to terms to that,
the fall of Russia in 1991 started with a similar failed attempted coup in its own way. It's like this is very reminiscent of that change.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm gonna over talk.
Yeah,
because I'm looking at the clock because my meatloaf is there.
I know you got food on the thing. I'm just a couple minutes, and then we'll let you go.
I gotta eat. It's late. It's been a long day.
Yes.
And tomorrow's going to be a long day. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. The difference between 91 and right now, and I said this in my vlog, so if you haven't seen my vlog, go see it. But I've also made this point with you regularly, and I'll make it again now. If you are 40 years old, if you are over 40 years old and you are a Muscovite, you have seen tanks rolling on the streets of your town in deadly earnest, not as not as a yearly Victory Day May 9th parade down Red Square. No, these were tanks that were on the streets and ready to blow stuff up and kill people. You saw in 91 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. You saw in 93 when Yeltsin just crashed the Duma, and we can debate that event a lot because it's very controversial. Nonetheless, the tanks were on the street. Now you have tanks on the street. You have stuff blowing up all over. Putin got into power by saying, if you let me in and you make the agreements with me, i.e., don't mess with the government, we won't mess with you, but just let us have our kleptocracy and don't question. Yeah, you'll have to pay the occasional bribe and stuff like that, but generally, don't mess with us and we won't mess with you. And in return, we will give you stability. We will give you dignity back. You will have a normal quote unquote country. And he's crapped out on all of those promises.
Right.
And to have tanks rolling up from Rostov-on-Don, headed towards Moscow, it's there. He's lost all cachet, and he may limp along. He may make some wily decision here or wily decision there. He may cling on for a bit, but it's done. He is going one place and one place only, ultimately, and that is ripped from power without his consent.
Yeah, and there are a lot of questions in the chat about will Putin do himself in and who will replace him. I don't see him doing that. But
the problem with the replacement, the problem again, pressed for time. So problem with the replacement is that he has repeatedly and systematically destroyed anybody who could replace him. Because if anybody, I mean, look at Medvedev, the only guy who has even remotely gotten to the head. Well, he was head of state, he was president, but everybody knew he was a puppet. Everybody knew he was Putin's boy, and I mean, Putin was literally his prime minister, and he only did that to kind of like take advantage of a loophole in the Russian Constitution where he just swapped hats.
Consecutive terms, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, he is never empowered or groomed or allowed that power to grow organically that would develop a successor so that he could then, kind of work his way out of being head of state and get into whatever it is, retirement, basically. Go off and be the guy who changed Russia.
But who coming up would trust him with all of his millions to not decide I'll make a run at the chair again at some point by snuffing everybody? I'm going to be. Yeah, save it till Wednesday.
I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy sitting in a chair. I will save it to Wednesday, but generally, who's going to allow to become president of the Russian Federation and still have Putin, kind of like sniping at them?
Yes.
So
look at Kazakhstan.
You make an autocratic system.
Yeah, literally through the.
Better example is Turkmenistan.
Yeah,
Turkmenistan with the god king that the Turkmen Bashur. I mean, you can't build these autocratic systems where you paint yourself into a corner with like, I can't announce a successor because then that successor becomes a threat to me, and yet at the same time, without allowing for a successor to emerge or to be appointed. I can never leave. I can never safely step down. And ultimately, the country, as we're seeing right now with Russia, the Russians want to know who's after Putin. I'm sure. This is very scary. This has got to be really scary. I mean, I've briefly spoken to a couple of Russian friends of mine, but we haven't really talked. But I'm betting that right now they are shitting their pants.
Yeah, it's a brown trouser era.
What they didn't want. This is exactly what they didn't want. It's why they accepted Putin in the first place.
Right.
Is to avoid a situation where you had some nut job mercenary head of 25,000 men who have been given really nasty pieces of kit, which can actually threaten the state itself because it is equal to the capabilities of the state, save maybe nuclear stuff. Or satellites or whatever, but dude was rocking up with S-300s. In Voronezh, we saw S-300s anti-aircraft that take down pretty much anything rolling up towards Moscow. That's not okay.
Yeah, but tell me again how NATO on your doorstep was the problem. Good Lord. Anyways, go eat your food. We love you for dropping in.
I will.
Appreciate it.
I will.
And we will see you on Wednesday.
I'll keep. Well, and I'm gonna. I suspect the way this thing is developing, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if I do a vlog tomorrow because this isn't done yet. No.
Nope.
I've got about 10 or 15 minutes if you have. Unless you wanted to go into a different.
I got to bug out because we're already over anyways, and I got a kid to check on. So we will do this Wednesday and watch his vlog. Everybody,
we will do this Wednesday. Watch my vlogs. I'll keep going. We may just briefly. We may have a lull in this because if it's true, the production is immense, and there's still all the fallout that's kind of this calm before the storm. But make no mistake about it, we are in that moment that I've been telling Hal about for so long. The boyars are going to start hitting one another until we find a successor and a dominant who can challenge Putin. But ultimately, this is the beginning of the end. And when it comes to Ukraine, obviously, we hope that they can capitalize on this, and also eventually maybe the Russians will recognize that they lost here. Time to go home.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks so much, Phil. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
I'll talk to you later on.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. And chat room, thank you guys so much for jumping back in here. Appreciate it. Don't forget to hit a thumbs up on your way out. And I will see you guys later on today. I got to go solve my audio issue and feed my kid. Not in that order, in reverse order.